This guy is an F-rank hunter who had 0 skills. But that changed when he discovered the global top 1 hunter's secret to being the absolute best. Unfortunately, Ganja also found out the strongest hunter's dirty secret. People call the Flame Emperor a genius, breaking every record while other talented hunters fail. But only the MC knows the dark truth behind his success. When the Flame Emperor realized he was exposed, he needed to eliminate the witnesses. So, he slaughtered Ganja like it was just a fun game for him. However, Ganja awakened a legendary skill nobody ever thought possible. And now, the strongest S-rank hunter is going to pay for it because he created the biggest madman of all time. And this madman craves revenge. In this world, a mysterious tower called Babylon appeared. It is so massive you can see it from anywhere on Earth. And those who had nothing to lose were the very first to step inside and explore what was in there. Every single floor of the tower was filled with otherworldly monsters and crazy skills. Was awakened for a select few visitors chosen by the tower. Those who heard the news quickly gathered at the tower and started to hunt those monsters. For years, hunters targeted clearing all the tower's floors. But right now, absolutely nobody has managed to beat the 40th floor. But then this guy showed up. He managed to clear over 10 floors completely solo, something not even the strongest top guilds could do. Soon he became wildly famous. Girls wanted him, and boys wanted to be exactly like him. Our protagonist was also one of these losers. He's been stuck at Frank for years and lacks any awakened skill inside the tower. Since he was a kid, his ultimate dream was to climb all the floors. On the day the biggest guild failed a massive raid, and that lone hunter soloed it. The Emperor said in an interview that success belongs to those who deserve it, and for those who oppose him, death will be their final destiny. At that exact moment, the protagonist felt so much insane jealousy toward the Flame Emperor that the system appeared for him, too. It finally happened. I awakened a skill. Ganja thought. The system stated that between heaven and earth, he was the most envious human alive, and because of that, it would grant him a unique skill. Ganja remembered other hunters who filmed the exact moment they awakened. So, he felt the system was being totally unfair to him. But that didn't matter because he received a glowing golden card. It was S rank for sure, and that was totally true. Then, the system announced the skill name was I want to become like you, and S+ rank. The crazy effect would activate automatically upon getting killed by an enemy, copying one of his killer skills and stealing it for himself. It wasn't possible to copy twice from the exact same opponent, and the stolen skill would be chosen randomly. However, to actually use it, he would have to die. The protagonist yelled, "What the hell is this trash skill? I simply have to die to use it." His new skill was so ridiculous that the protagonist spent the next few days completely depressed. He didn't even report to the Hunters Association because he was too ashamed to tell anyone his skill was total garbage. After saying that and drinking all night long, he had a brutal hangover and a massive headache. While lying flat on the floor, he heard a voice screaming for help. Then the protagonist leaned up and listened to the Flame Emperor talking to a silver-haired girl. The Flame Emperor said she was a fantastic actress. Anyone seeing them now would easily assume she was the victim, but he knew the truth. The drink she was about to hand him was Basilisk's stomach acid, the very poison she planned to use. If not for his ability, things could have gone very wrong. The girl began to claim it was a misunderstanding, insisting she only wanted to join him on a tower hunt as a teammate. The Flame Emperor also said that they had waited for this, but he was mistaken. Ganja, overhearing everything, was in shock, unable to comprehend their conversation. Was it a lover's quarrel or some kind of hunter dispute? Suddenly, the Flame Emperor grabbed the girl by the neck, declaring there was nothing left to discuss. From that moment on, he would ask the questions, and she only needed to nod and answer. If she tried to lie, he possessed a lie detector ability, so it wouldn't be wise for her to try. His first question was, who had ordered her to kill him? Was it the Black Dragon Witch? Hearing those words, the girl had nothing more to say, and simply nodded. The Flame Emperor, understanding, stated he had already suspected as much and thus no longer needed her. He then incinerated her with his flames. The MC witnessing the entire scene wondered if this was the hero everyone claimed him to be. What he saw, however, was not a hero, but a psychopathic killer. Ganja then started to run, accidentally stepping on a glass bottle. In that instant, the Flame Emperor found him. He even joked that he had gotten rid of all the rats in the vicinity, but it seemed he had forgotten one. The MC realized that look wasn't from a normal person, but a killer. And by the way he spoke, the saint, that silver-haired girl, wasn't his first victim. He must have killed a dozen, or perhaps even more. As he thought this, the MC fell to the ground. Looking back, he saw his shoe, or rather his foot. Slowly, the Flame Emperor approached him while the MC trembled in fear. He simply kicked his foot towards him, and Ganja began to beg for mercy, pleading for his life. However, the Flame Emperor ignored his simply asked if he had seen that. The MC, in shock, said he hadn't seen or heard anything. The Flame Emperor asked another question about what he hadn't seen, then suddenly grabbed Ganja by the neck and questioned how that was possible, as he was at the right time, in the right place, and he wasn't foolish enough to believe that. He declared that if the MC didn't want to end up like the saint, he should answer calmly. The MC realized he was a demon. His world, and even himself, had been observed by someone like him. However, the MC told the Flame Emperor about his lie detection ability, stating that if he used it on him, he would realize that he knew nothing and was nothing. The Flame Emperor looked at him with an uncertain expression, and seeing this, the MC wondered if he had killed the saint without any certainty, just because she was a little suspicious. The Flame Emperor said he wasn't that kind of person. Who did he think he was? Because the saint was truly going to kill him, and if he didn't kill her now, he would have been poisoned tomorrow. The MC asked how he knew that. So, the Flame Emperor simply replied that he had his contacts and added that since he was talking about the lie detector, he was indeed innocent. Ganja was relieved, saying he finally believed him. However, the Flame Emperor declared that he had already seen too much and therefore he would have to die. After his death, the MC began to remember his childhood and recalled that his name was Ganja, a name he accepted from his orphanage director. However, he didn't want to die like this. We see the MC in a kind of empty space with a strange window in front of him, and he begins to wonder why he had to die like this. No, or rather why he had to live like this. The window in front of him stated that the conditions for his ability were met, and because of his death from now on, he would be copying a random ability from his killer. Thus, a new skill card was created. The MC looked up wishing for the golden card and declared that he wanted to live a better life. If he received just one more chance, just one more, he would make his life completely different. Ganja suddenly woke up, and in front of him was his computer displaying the news he had already seen. He noticed he was in his room again and began to question why he was there. However, hearing the voice coming from his computer, he once again noticed the meaning in that news. The MC began to wonder what on earth that was and was in shock, questioning how he had gotten home. He looked at his phone and saw that it had the same comments as before, and in front of him, the same news that had played the previous day was showing again. He truly didn't understand what was happening and began to recap that a moment before he was killed, he had obtained a golden skill card. Recalling this, he told the skill card to open and saw that his envy skill was there again. However, there was an additional skill in the middle, and it was the ability he stole from the Flame Emperor, which he copied when he died. It was called Returner's Clock, and its rank was X. This skill had a very simple effect. At the moment of his death, he returned 24 hours in time, and his memories and experiences were preserved. Seeing such a description, the MC realized that everything clicked. He noticed that this was the true formula to become the legendary hunter. That's why the Emperor was so sure the saint would kill him the next day. But he also killed the MC, who was innocent. Again, the interviewer asked the same question about the secret to success in becoming a legendary hunter. And the Flame Emperor said the same thing he had said the previous day, exactly the same words, that if anyone sought trouble with him, everyone would die. Hearing these words, Ganja began to get nervous and declared that now they would see who would die first. Suddenly, he heard someone shouting that something was on fire. And looking out the window, he noticed that a building was in flames. Outside, several people were gathered trying to run and put out the fire. It is explained to us that this place where the MC lives is different from the outside world. It is a city made for people who enter the tower to become hunters, and the location he was in was the first floor of the tower. Ganja was running among the people wondering what time it was, and noticed it was the same time he had gotten drunk yesterday. It was also the time the Flame Emperor destroyed the evidence of his homicide. Among the people trying to put out the fire was the rank 2 Black Dragon, the master of the Black Witch Guild. Further to the side was the rank 5, the master of the Healers and Pharmacists Guild, the Alchemist Master. And the one calming the people was the rank 10 and leader of the city's surveillance corporation, the Paladin. The MC remembers some people call his city the City of Ascension, but it was a city you couldn't leave once you entered. Since everyone was a hunter, most were accustomed to extreme situations like this one. As Ganja thought about this, he heard someone comment that they hadn't seen the Saintess at the moment, and she wasn't the type to be absent during emergencies. However, the Paladin replied that perhaps she had a date with her boyfriend, as she had noticed her spending a lot of time with the Flame Emperor. The Alchemist Master said she didn't like him much as something about him didn't sit right with her. The very instant after she spoke those words, someone arrived. It was the Flame Emperor, joking that someone had played with fire without his permission. However, the MC wouldn't be fooled by that silly face. The paladin thanked him for arriving so quickly and asked if he could put out the fire. He asked what he would gain from it. Hearing that, Gongja was already getting annoyed, wondering how someone could be so brazen as to ask for a reward to save people when he himself had started the fire. The paladin declared that he was very confident for being the rank 1 who saved the day. However, he said he didn't care what others thought of him, and since he wouldn't gain anything from the service, he would simply leave. However, the MC knew something no one else did. Everyone thought the Flame Emperor was just a slightly eccentric hero. Yet, he was the only one who knew his true nature as a bloodthirsty murderer. For that reason, he had to kill him. So, the MC turned and started walking towards the Flame Emperor. People tried to stop him, but he refused. In his thoughts, he declared that for humanity and the honor of hunters, he had to eliminate him. And regardless of the method, that psychopathic killer needed to be exterminated. Suddenly, the MC ran and entered the fire. He noticed people's gazes on him and felt nothing but pain. However, this was the only way to kill that monster again. Gongja went back 24 hours in time and once more woke up in his bed in his tiny, messy, and smelly apartment. The system window announced that he was currently a rank F hunter and therefore he would incur no penalty for using his skill. The MC remembered that killing the Flame Emperor in his current state was impossible. Even if he was lucky enough to kill him, it would only send him back 24 hours in time, as the Emperor also possessed that ability. So there was only one way for a weak hunter like him to kill him. At that very moment, while thinking about this, the MC recalled a news report where the Emperor spoke of the day he awakened his ability. It had been exactly 11 years prior. The interviewer joked with him, saying he had an excellent memory to recall it so clearly. But the Flame Emperor replied that it wasn't quite like that, because coincidentally, he awakened on his birthday. More precisely 11 years ago on June 7th. The MC calculated that it would be exactly 450 days ago. If he killed himself 450 times, he could go back to before the day the Emperor awakened again. Gongja went back 24 hours in time and once more did the same thing over and over again. Since he was a rank F who had nothing, he would receive no penalty for using the skill. Then he finally reached the last day and once again woke up in his room. He looked at the clock and realized he had succeeded. All those newspapers he had on his wall about the Flame Emperor had vanished. He had truly returned to the time when the legend of the Flame Emperor had not yet begun. He ended up dying 30 more times in the original plan, which was 50 times, including the time it took to kill himself, as well as a few escapes here and there. He had only gone back all this time to prove that the legend of that demon was not eternal. From now on, he would prove to everyone that he would usher in a new era. 11 years prior, on May 6th at 11 a.m., more specifically, in the former Flame Emperor's building, he woke up to his alarm clock, having drunk too much the day before. While the MC already knew this, as he had relived this day 10 times to plan the perfect strategy, and it was flawless. Every day at 9 a.m., he wakes up in the rank F dormitory and always plans to go to work. Then at 3 p.m., he collects slimes in the hunting grounds on the second floor. And as always, he was complaining about this life. The MC even realizes that his 21-year-old self is just a common F-rank hunter wishing for a golden card. The Flame Emperor, or rather USUA, wished for a skill or to win the lottery. Normally, his wishes would come true within a week, but that wasn't going to happen as such a future wasn't meant for someone like him. At 5:31 p.m., Yuzuha said he wouldn't get anywhere just hunting slimes. So, he headed to a higher and more difficult area than where beginner hunters usually go. A place where for the next 36 minutes, he would be alone. This was the perfect opportunity. Gongja approached him, asking for help, claiming he had been attacked by a wolf, and asked if he had any kind of potion to heal him. Yuha became indignant, asking if he had already dealt with a monster in that area. It would be bad as he wouldn't be able to meet his daily quota. The MC asked him to give him a potion, and Yuha replied that he didn't have any, as he couldn't even complete his daily mission. However, if the MC had something to trade, he would offer the potion. The MC asked why he was asking for something in return, and Yuha replied that his hunt had been ruined, and yet he was expected to give a potion for free. The MC said he would pay for the potion, but needed to use it quickly before he died. However, Yuha stated that he wasn't understanding the situation. The MC was on the verge of death, yet he didn't want to pay the potion's value. Did he think his life was worth so little? Then the MC said he would pay 20 gold for the potion, but Yuha didn't accept. He wanted everything the MC had. The MC already knew this. He knew what kind of person Yuha was. Yuha said the MC was quite poor for having only 60 coins at most. And Gongja replied that those were all his savings. Yuha said he didn't need to worry as he would spend them very well, because that's how life works. The MC asked for the potion since he had handed over the money. However, Yuha said he had thought about it for a bit, but if he let the MC go, he might come back for revenge later. And of course, Yuha needed to live a worry-free life. Since the MC had seen his face, he should just die. At that very moment, the MC ducked down and delivered a kick right between Yuha's legs, declaring that he would live a worry-free life. Instantly, he drew his sword and slit Yuha's throat. The MC began to attack again and declared that to prevent the 1 in a million chance of Yuha awakening and threatening his life, he would make sure to finish him off properly. At that moment, the MC killed Yuha and began to wonder. Killing him was expected, but something bothered him. Why in that moment, before killing him, did he say his name? However, the MC understood after 4,090 deaths. He realized that despite being a cold-blooded killer, he wanted to pretend to be a holy knight in a sacred duel. Given his actions, this was not justified. Acting righteously after killing all those innocent people was simply hypocrisy. As the MC was saying this, wolves appeared behind him. Ganja realized the wolves wanted to eat Yuzuha's corpse, and since his work was done, it no longer mattered. The MC walked to a strange sand mound and began to dig it. When he opened the hole, there was a backpack and 3 bottles inside. He changed into cleaner, blood-free clothes and began to wonder if it was finally over. He was then teleported to the first floor and noticed there were people from the Vigilante Corporation. However, he was afraid to pass them because of the smell of blood. Yet, he walked past calmly and no one suspected him. He realized it was finally over and no one knew what had happened. And of course, to celebrate, he went to the bar and was drinking heavily. In his thoughts, he was happy because the Flame Emperor USUA no longer existed. People were saying he was quite happy that day, and he replied that he had to celebrate as all the problems in his life had finally ended. At that very moment, he opened his status window. However, looking at it, he realized he had no combat skills. But he was happy because he realized that this was nothing more than greed and shamelessness. Since he had a time reversal ability, he could win the lottery or sell the method for clearing the upper floors that no one else knew yet. While the MC was thinking this, someone arrived. An old man in a suit wearing red sneakers. He ordered the waiter some milk mixed with a little vodka and sugar. The MC noticed this guy was quite strange. However, the people in the bar started whispering among themselves, wondering how he was there. Looking closer at the old man, the MC realized who he was. The number 1 ranked hunter of that era, known as the Sword Saint. Let's get to know this Sword Saint. His real name is Marcus Calamberry. Many people had forgotten him after 11 years, as a long time had passed since his disappearance. But until the Flame Emperor had risen to fame, he was the true number 1 of the tower. The MC didn't know he was standing in front of the strongest guy of that era and wondered if he had several S-rank abilities. Unlike his own strange abilities that were useless for combat, following this line of thought, he remembered that his ability allowed him, if he died, to steal any ability from a hunter who killed him. This meant he could steal the current abilities of the top 1. Even if the old man killed him, he couldn't truly die as he would just go back one day. The MC started looking at comments about the Sword Saint online, where people said no one knew what kind of ability he had. There were even rumors that he came from a rich family in the north, but left everything to enter the tower. However, looking at all these comments, the MC realized that the Sword Saint was shrouded in mystery, and there was no useful information, only rumors. It would be good if he at least had half the desire for attention and fame that the Flame Emperor had. Suddenly, the old man told him to shut up. However, the MC realized he wasn't talking to him, but rather talking to himself. The MC even realized that based on the rumors of him talking to himself, at least that part was true. He wondered why all the top-ranked individuals always had some kind of issue in their head. Continuing to look at the internet comments, the MC found a comment that said it was not good to utter a word in front of the Sword Saint. And this was a 100% true story witnessed firsthand. According to the sender, if you don't want to die, never say that in front of the Sword Saint. The story goes that high-ranked guys got into a fight with the Sword Saint in the hunting grounds of the 9th floor. These guys were mocking him, telling him to use a hearing aid since he was becoming a senile old man, and that based on his face and personality, his grandchildren would also be terrible people. After those words, the Sword Saint simply split the man in half. Everyone might think this was nonsense, but either way, it was not good to talk about the Sword Saint's grandchildren in front of him. The MC realized that could be tested to see if it was true. The Sword Saint was a bit agitated, so he paid for his drink and left. Everyone in the bar who had been silent started declaring that he had finally left, saying he was an old man with weapons and muttering to himself. The MC did the same and left. From that moment on, he went in search of the number 1 ranked individual. The MC started wondering where he had gone. Since he followed him as soon as he left, he couldn't have gone too far. Looking ahead of the people, he found him and started following him. This was easy, as the only person who dresses like that in all of Babylon is easy to find. The MC started wondering what kind of ability he would have. Is it like the Flame Emperor, whose rank X abilities allowed him to go back in time? So the Sword Saint was successful even before the Flame Emperor. He must have something much better. Could he have some kind of ability even stronger than going back in time? Suddenly the Sword Saint stopped and said that this place should be suitable. The MC was surprised by his words, and the Sword Saint told him he could come out from behind the trees, declaring that no one knew what would happen from that moment on. The MC apologized for his bad manners and said he wanted to ask the Sword Saint for a favor. However, to our surprise, he started laughing. The Sword Saint asked if he hadn't followed him in such a careless way on purpose so that he would notice. However, the one most surprised in this situation was the MC. He had no weapon or anything of the sort with him. Yet the Sword Saint was already holding a sword almost as if he were about to attack. This made no sense. Was it just because he had followed him? The Sword Saint began to say that he was a good actor as expected of a first-class assassin. The MC was confused. The Sword Saint had already found a reason to kill him without even mentioning his grandchildren. The MC said he didn't understand what was happening, but the Sword Saint stated that he had been pretending until now, so he couldn't fool him. Ganja continued saying he truly didn't understand what he was talking about, because how could he look like a first-class assassin? In fact, he was quite proud of looking like an ordinary person. However, the Sword Saint drew his sword and told him to be quiet. He declared that he possessed several abilities, and among them one that showed how many times a person had committed murder. Then the MC realized that, as explained, murder is murder. He couldn't have known that the person he killed would become a monster, but there was no time to explain that in this timeline. He thought the Sword Saint was seeing the number 1 above his head. The MC began to say that even though it might sound like he was making excuses, he had done this act for a good reason. However, the Sword Saint merely remained silent and said he was disgusting because a demon like him who had killed countless people wanted to invent reasons to favor himself now. The Sword Saint hadn't lived a particularly honest life either, but at least he hadn't committed as many mass murders as the MC. The MC wasn't understanding anything. What did he mean by mass murders when he had only killed one person? The Sword Saint said that the MC was now a disgrace to society, as the number of people he had killed so far was 491. Hearing this, the MC realized that he had only killed Yuha once, but he had killed himself 4,090 times to reach the past. However, currently in the eyes of that old man, he was merely a serial killer who had murdered 4,091 people. From that moment on, this was no longer about copying his abilities. As long as the Sword Saint possessed that ability, no matter how many times they met, the Sword Saint would always try to kill him. The Sword Saint tried to attack the MC, but he dodged. However, the Sword Saint was still convinced that the MC was a first-class assassin, and that's why he managed to dodge. Meanwhile, the MC was in trouble. The moment he was focused on dodging the attacks, he tripped on a stone, which made him fall to the ground. Obviously, the first time the MC dodged the attack was pure luck, but this time, he wouldn't be able to dodge. However, before the Sword Saint delivered his final blow, he told him to shut up. The MC realized that the Sword Saint was talking to himself again and thought it was some kind of schizophrenic attack right in the middle of the battle. However, this could be one of his abilities, or perhaps even telepathy. He had already heard rumors that such abilities existed. So, probably the Sword Saint was talking to someone about the number of deaths displayed above his head. But this was bad because then he would also be a wanted man, not only by the Hunters Association, but also hunted by the great guilds and top bounty hunters. In the end, he would simply be publicly executed on the first floor of the tower. But he couldn't let that happen and had to die now, before 24 hours passed. At that very moment, the MC stood up and asked the Sword Saint if his grandchildren were all right. He added that he had heard his family was a good family in Northern Europe and that such families weren't very easy to deal with. The outside world was a very dangerous place. And by some chance, if someone accidentally discovered that he was the Sword Saint, what did he think would happen to his grandchildren? And of course, at that very instant, the MC saw the world upside down. He realized he hadn't even seen the last attack, and once again wished he could be like him. He was very envious, as he also wanted to have that beautiful attack. Thus, once again, the MC died again. They went to the same strange, empty space with a window in front of him. This system was creating his ability cards, and he was anxious because he would have the abilities of the 2 top rankers. He would only take one as a reward, as he did with the Flame Emperor. But looking at the cards in front of him, he realized there were no golden cards. The MC was obviously shocked because, unlike the Flame Emperor, the legend of the Sword Saint Marcus Calamberry evolved without any S-rank abilities. Ganja fell to his knees in shock. He wondered if there was some kind of overpowered ability among those silver cards. There were only 3 bronze cards and 4 silver cards. Ignoring the worst cards, which were the bronze ones, he would have a 1 in 4 chance. Among them was that kill counting ability, and he obviously didn't want it. He wanted a very strong combat-oriented ability. So, he grabbed a silver card with all his might. Of course, after selecting the card, he went back 24 hours in time and suddenly woke up in his room again. Quickly, he opened his status window and wondered if he had obtained the Sword Saint's main ability. It was a passive ability again, but at least it was a plus rank and didn't seem to be the kill counter. He lay on his bed complaining that he wanted a cool ability like martial arts or aura awakenings. He opened the ability card again, specifically the one he had taken from the Sword Saint, and its name was Sword Throne. From the name, he couldn't understand what it did. However, suddenly someone asked what that noise was. Looking to the side, the MC became a bit confused as there seemed to be some kind of specter talking to him. He told it to shut up and be quiet as they would train soon. While the specter was speaking, the MC politely excused himself and asked who it was. The specter asked the MC if he could see and hear it, and Ganja replied that it was obvious since they were talking. The specter was a bit surprised, as that wasn't how things were supposed to work. It started wondering where Marcus was. The MC asked if it was talking about Marcus Calamberry, the Sword Saint, and the specter said that although that title was an exaggeration, he was indeed talking about him. It asked the MC if he knew where he was, because since the MC was there, the old man was probably nearby. The MC started wondering what on earth that specter was, and looking at the ability he had taken from the Sword Saint realized that this ghost was in fact a being from another world who had completed 99 stages of the tower, but failed the 100th. The MC asked the ghost if it was the Sword Saint's guardian spirit, and the ghost replied that it probably was. The MC, somewhat shocked, said that unintentionally he had accidentally stolen it from the old man. Hearing this, the ghost was obviously shocked. It started crying, complaining that since the MC had copied the ability, he could also cancel it, and asked if he didn't know how to reverse it since nowadays when you take something wrong, you can return it. But the MC was also shocked by the whole situation. He didn't know what to do and said that his ability wasn't something he could control. The ghost was almost falling into depression because it had been stolen by a loser. It started spouting a lot of nonsense at the MC, saying it had warned the old man to walk the right path. The MC asked if it could at least live in silence, and the spirit mocking him said there was no way to live in silence since it was dead. The MC, already furious, said that it should die in silence. Then the ghost started talking more and more, saying that besides being dead, it had been stolen and was now being mistreated by someone in a bad mood who had no shame. The MC wondered what kind of ghost talked so much like that. However, he remembered the Sword Saint who was always complaining and suddenly telling people to shut up. The MC was somewhat shocked because now he not only had to hide from the Sword Saint, but had also acquired a truly annoying ability. The ghost asked why he wanted to hide from the old man because it might not seem like it, but he was a nice guy and of course he just couldn't talk about his grandchildren. The MC replied that he already knew that and that he also had a death counter. The MC reiterated that he knew this and that his number was 491. The ghost hearing this asked the MC if he had gone crazy because he was a complete amateur among amateurs and didn't even know how to use aura. So, how on earth did he manage to kill 4,091 people? The MC explained to the ghost that in reality he hadn't killed 491 people. He had only killed one who would become a tyrant in the future. And the truth was that he had killed himself 4,090 times and ended up going back 11 years into the past simply to kill that guy. He had a copy ability which allowed him to steal any ability from anyone who killed him. And coincidentally, he ended up receiving the power to go back in time when he was killed by that guy. Every time the MC dies, he returns 24 hours in time, starting from the moment of his death. Technically, he was immortal. You want to get back at him, but this guy was rank 1 and couldn't be killed due to his resurrection ability. That's why he ended up going back to the time before abilities awakened. The ghost questioned, asking if he had traveled back in time just to get revenge on one person. And for that feat, he simply committed suicide for 11 years. The atmosphere between them grew tense. The ghost asked the MC his name, and he replied that it was Kim Ganja. He asked another question. Why had he decided to provoke the old man? And why had he stolen his ability right after his revenge? The MC simply replied, because he was number 1, and the fastest way to get strong is by taking the abilities of the strongest. The ghost looked at him and said that the reason he was being honest was because no one else could hear the information about the ability he had just spoken of, as no one could sense or see him. The MC simply confirmed his answer. At that moment, the ghost asked him to stand up and began to observe the MC, realizing that his body was quite good and only needed some exercises here and there, and that he was also very ambitious. In the end, he realized the MC wasn't so bad and wanted to make a request. He wanted him to hunt some monsters for him. Transitioning to the tower, the MC asked the ghost if he only wanted him to kill slimes, and the ghost confirmed. At that very instant, the MC cut the slime, but it grew even larger and enveloped Ganja's body. However, he remained very calm and quickly got out of the slime's body. The ghost said that was what he had truly seen. The MC asked what he was talking about, and the ghost began to explain that when he was alive, he was known as the Sword Emperor. He had been born in a different world, and a tower also appeared in his world, which he quickly ascended to the top of. The MC realized that this ghost was truly insane because the Flame Emperor only reached the 40th floor while he had managed to reach the 99th floor. The ghost added that upon reaching his level, he could see a person's talent just by looking at them. For this reason, he wanted him to hunt to observe his abilities. Hearing that, the MC was somewhat disappointed, saying that he had wasted his time and had no talent for fighting. The ghost asked what nonsense he was talking about. He did have talent, and a very significant one. In fact, the MC questioned if he was joking, but the ghost added that of course he had no talent for martial arts because his movements were clumsy, his body wasn't trained, and he wasn't even close to sensing his aura. However, he possessed a talent that no one else had, the fear of death. People usually protect themselves instinctively when fighting, but the MC was the opposite. He had probably lost that fear after dying over 4,000 times. The MC questioned if that could be considered a type of talent, and the ghost confirmed it. For him, the definition of talent wasn't something like immeasurable power. In fact, anyone could gain talent during their life, and one of the most difficult to obtain was overcoming the fear of death. That alone was incredible. The MC noted that no one had ever told him that, not even himself. Ganja couldn't stand being treated like an insect by the Flame Emperor. He couldn't bear it to the point that he killed himself 4,090 times. And in the end, death, something everyone fears, ended up becoming his talent. The ghost asked the MC something. Since he had stolen the old man's ability, that meant he had died to him, and he wanted to know what he thought when the old man killed him. The MC replied that the moon and that cut were very beautiful. At that moment, the ghost began to laugh incessantly and said that the MC was very interesting. He added that if his ability was copy, then that meant there was another version of him as the spiritual guardian of the Sword Saint. Therefore, he wanted to see which of the two would become the best hunter. To find out the result, he would help him. He would help him to the point where he could defeat the old man, or rather to the point where he would be above him and also conquer all those floors of the tower. The next day, the ghost was nagging the MC to wake up. He should wake up soon, as the old man was probably on the 10th floor while he was sleeping. If he didn't wake up, he would sing a song for him. The MC got up a bit annoyed, questioning if he didn't know the time. It was only 4 o'clock in the morning. The ghost replied that even insects start crawling at 4 in the morning, but the MC retorted that it was no excuse as the ghost was only doing this because he couldn't sleep. Ganja added that he now understood why the Sword Saint trained at such crazy hours. It certainly wasn't by choice, but out of sheer exhaustion. The ghost then told the MC he should be grateful and kneel. The MC declared he would kill him, but the ghost just laughed, saying he was already dead, so the MC couldn't kill him. Since the MC was so angry, he just needed to kill himself, as he couldn't kill the ghost. However, he couldn't even do that because he would simply return in time. The ghost then declared that the MC's nickname from now on would be Zombie. Outside, the MC was doing his daily run when the ghost began to comment that besides his perseverance, the MC had no other talent. He'd prefer to start teaching him the basics, but even there, the MC was inferior. For some reason, his level was below basic. Yet, in terms of potential, he was like a limitless black hole, which meant he needed special assistance. To achieve this, he would need to pay for some high-level torture. The ghost then declared it was time for them to win some money in the lottery. You might be wondering where they'd win this money given they were inside the tower. In fact, there was a guild called Sangrun, though its official name was the Merchants Union. The master of this guild was the rank 3 hunter known as the Countess, and she was the only one with an ability to conduct exchanges with the outside world. Thanks to this ability, the Sangrun Guild held a monopoly on the tower's economy, and as a result became the only place in all of Babylon where one could bet on the lottery. The MC arrived and placed his coupon on the counter, stating he had come to collect his winnings. The clerk congratulated the MC for finally winning their guild's lottery. The ghost, somewhat curious, asked if the MC knew why they always wore cat ears, and Ganja replied that he'd heard their guildmaster was a catwoman. The clerk questioned the MC if he had checked the date, as it wasn't possible to collect a prize from a ticket purchased over 2 years ago. The MC replied that he had bought this one last week. After that, The clerk examined the ticket and was shocked as the MC had won the first-place lottery prize. Everyone behind the MC was surprised. The clerk, somewhat confused, said he would confirm the number and call the manager immediately. The ghost questioned the MC if he wasn't afraid of being robbed in an alley or something similar with that amount of money. Gongja replied that before he returned to this time, Yuha had used this ability to win the lottery several times. So, he had learned a few things. It wasn't something that could be hidden, even if he tried. Even if it were revealed, it was better to have everything explained. If a winner were attacked, the Sangri Guild would suffer the worst consequences. At that very moment, the guild manager, Arthur Tyler, arrived. He was also known as the Vault Guardian. The MC joked with him, saying his nickname suited the guild. Normally an F rank like Gongja could never associate with someone of high rank, but today was different because he was now a client worth 50,000 gold. The ghost began to mock the MC, saying he was easily swayed, getting impressed by mere treatment and embarrassed when his talent was mentioned yesterday. In his thoughts, the MC wanted to kill the ghost. The ghost declared that the MC shouldn't be so easily influenced. He should believe that everyone in the world existed to be trampled upon by them. In his thoughts, Gongja mused that anyone with Emperor in their name was a psychopath, and he never wanted to be like them. Arthur questioned the MC if he was having any problems, and the MC denied it, saying he was just a bit unfocused. Arthur said he was relieved, as he had been wondering if someone had treated him poorly before he arrived. The MC began to wonder in his thoughts if Arthur was some kind of angel. A short while later, they arrived at the VIP room, and the prize before the MC was what he had won, 53,000 gold. Seeing such a large sum, the MC couldn't help but swallow hard. As where he came from, all that gold was equivalent to about $5 million. With all that money, he could live comfortably for the rest of his life. His goal was to succeed, and he had already achieved it. However, he had decided to reign in this tower as a hunter. How he acquired this money was just a small step, and he had already seen much more impressive gold than that. The MC told Arthur that he should keep the money in the safe, and this was a wise choice as it was what he recommended to many winners. Even if he managed to carry the money with him, there were many bad people in the world. Because of this, Gongja wanted to purchase an honorary membership title from the Sanong Hune Guild. Arthur asked the MC if he wasn't part of any guild, and the MC denied it. The ghost said that the MC was truly smart because a guild wasn't just a group of friends or hunters. The biggest reason people joined guilds was because they wanted to be protected. On the first floor of the tower, there were guards and the Hunters Association, but the city was too wild to trust those two organizations. This could be seen by how the Flame Emperor and the Sword Saint killed the MC. The Flame Emperor never affiliated with a guild and always prided himself on his freedom. He probably won the lottery many times, but never paid a protection fee to anyone. Someone at his level refusing to join guilds probably really annoyed others, and that was why he was almost poisoned. The MC told Arthur that he wanted one more thing. He wanted a cheap room for one person, and also, if any newspaper asked who the prize winner was, he could say it was an anonymous honorary member of the Sanong Hyun Guild. Arthur remained silent at the MC's words and said that he was well prepared. The MC simply said that the world was a dangerous place, so he had to be ready for what was to come. The ghost said that the MC was doing very well on his own, and he had thought he even needed his diapers changed at first. However, at that moment, he seemed quite happy. The MC said it was obvious, but this was just the beginning. 4,000 deaths for 1,000 days to go back in time. He couldn't savor this before, as he was focused on his revenge. However, now it was time to enjoy all that power. Outside the Merchant Guild, the ghost reminded the MC that hunts were the most important parts of his lessons, and now that he had enough to pay for them, he asked what the next step would be. The MC replied that perhaps he should find a competent teacher. The ghost retorted to the MC, saying that he already had one right in front of him. However, the ghost added that books, scrolls to teach martial arts, or potions to improve physical abilities were needed. However, at the MC's level, he wouldn't be able to learn anything just by reading scrolls. So, the only things he could manage to do were potions, and very good ones at that. The MC began to wonder how good they should be, and the ghost thought for a moment and said they should be from a place called the Alchemy Castle because there were many healers there. Gongja said that the potions there were extremely expensive, but the ghost said that now he had a lot of money and shouldn't be stingy. He just needed to make a deal, and perhaps he could get a discount. While running to the location, the ghost suddenly stopped and told the MC that he should hide because he had forgotten to mention the shop they were going to. The old man also bought potions there. The MC was asked why he hadn't said that before, as he should have cut off that kind of thing from the beginning. Suddenly, the Sword Saint stopped and looked towards where the MC was, and Gongja was already in shock, wondering what he should do. Should he simply run? However, the Sword Saint merely turned away. The ghost said that was terrible because if the old man was there, it meant he would buy all the potions, and he told the MC to leave faster. Arriving in front of the shop, they realized the old man had entered it. And the ghost began to say that the training was over there because that shop was the best in the area, and the old man would probably take all the GT. The MC realized in his thoughts that it would be too risky to use the same shop as the Sword Saint. However, he wanted to take a different path. Looking at his phone, he noticed that neither the top 100 nor the top 300 were listed there. Suddenly, the MC said that maybe he wouldn't have to spend as much money as he had mentioned before, and they could get very good potions for a very cheap price. A short while later, the MC was in a type of slum where everyone was giving him dirty looks. The ghost questioned the MC if there was really a decent alchemist around there. The MC replied that she wasn't just decent, but a genius who only appears once every generation. Obviously, the ghost said the MC was crazy because how could a genius live in a place like that? While the ghost was speaking, people were again giving the MC dirty looks, but in reality, that wasn't it. They were trying to see if it was worth robbing the MC, but they gave up because they saw him talking to himself and perhaps thought he was crazy. As they were walking through the slum, they heard the voices of a woman screaming, and the MC said they had probably arrived at the right place. The girl was screaming that if they took her equipment, she simply wouldn't be able to survive. The man told her to take everything they found there, and the girl tried to grab the cart with her belongings, but the man sped up, causing her to fall. The bald man told her it was better for her to work on something else. People were complaining that her potions were too expensive, but the girl retorted that they weren't expensive at all. She barely made any profit from them. She declared that finding potions of the same quality and price throughout all of Babylon was impossible, and therefore they should be grateful that she had opened that shop in a trashy place like that. However, people simply ignored her and left. She asked if they weren't going to buy any potions since they were there, and everyone replied that they wouldn't buy anything from a rude person like her. Seeing that, the ghost questioned the MC if that loser in front of them was the generational genius he had spoken about. But the MC asked if he was blind. Then he approached her and questioned if her shop was still open. Obviously, this woman wasn't a crazy alchemist or a loser. She was simply the master alchemist, an alchemist who would reach level 5 in the future and become the leader of the alchemy castle. The girl said she was open and could make any potion he needed and questioned the MC about which product he wanted to buy. The MC said he wanted a product worth around 20,000 gold. And this obviously shocked the girl. Well, Ganja had all this in mind. If he could form connections with the high ranks to reach the top, it would simply become his golden goose. And for that reason, he would become her #1 client. A short while later, the girl led him to her shop, and upon arriving there, they noticed everything was messy. The ghost started questioning the MC again if he really wanted potions made by her. The girl asked the MC again if he would really give 20,000 gold. The MC believed that if she was truly doubting him, he would pay in advance. The girl said that if possible, an advance payment would be very good. The MC realized she was so broke she couldn't even maintain good manners, and he told her to take the money from a safe. He would notify the Sanghyun Guild. She asked if she could really take as much as she needed, and the MC confirmed yes. However, he didn't want to go too far over the original 20,000 gold budget, as his resources weren't unlimited. The girl said that before making any potion, she wanted to say one thing. If the potion he wanted was an illicit drug, she wouldn't make it. The MC realized that even though her shop had just been closed, she still didn't have the courage to refuse thousands of gold. Despite seeming crazy, she fit the role of master alchemist very well. The MC told her to relax, as he wouldn't ask for any drugs or anything of the sort. The girl then asked what type of potion he wanted to order. The ghost said she didn't seem that skilled yet, but he would provide the recipe. So, they told the girl the ingredients one by one, and she wrote them down until the end. When the ghost finished listing the ingredients, the girl said that it would produce a potion to increase reaction time, and that the recipe was of an extremely high level. The ghost was surprised and confirmed that was it. The girl became excited and started rambling about optimism and blah blah blah. The MC and the ghost realized that this type of specialist truly existed. The MC interrupted her asking how long it would take to make everything, and the girl replied that it would be about 4 days. She started to explain the reason. However, the MC recalled in his thoughts that in his previous life, getting a potion made by her and her guild would take months or even years to receive. He told the girl that 4 days was nothing. As they were leaving, the ghost said he still didn't approve of the girl, as she might only be good with words and perhaps a swindler. However, the MC didn't mind and asked where he had gotten that recipe. The ghost explained that it was a potion he had created himself, the best recipe he managed to devise. After consuming all sorts of potions, the MC started to tease him, saying that she had praised his recipe as extremely high level and added that even if he didn't trust her now, 10 years from now, she would be the head of the alchemy castle. The ghost didn't believe it and said she would probably take his money and run away. 4 days later, he was there with all the ingredients and the potions he had ordered. She then handed 3 boxes to the MC with 30 potions in each. The MC stated that that quantity of potions would be worth 30 days of work. But in his thoughts, he realized this was 15 times more efficient than buying from the shop suggested by the guardian spirit. However, while he was thinking this, the girl caught the MC's attention and questioned why he had placed such a valuable order with an unknown alchemist like her. Even though she was confident in her skill, just by looking at that recipe, she realized that only 2 people in all of Babylon could make it. The MC himself had seen that all those people treated her like a madwoman. In his thoughts, the MC said it was because before him stood the most renowned pharmacist of her entire generation. But that wasn't the only reason. It was because she was the one who ran to the city faster than anyone when the fire started, and also someone who hadn't been deceived by the Flame Emperor. And on top of that, she was skilled and kind. Besides having good judgment, it would be a great loss if he didn't get close to someone like her. However, all of this was in his thoughts. And he told her that he helped her because she seemed kind and also because she would achieve success even without his help. Therefore, he believed that good hunters like them needed to be successful so they could help each other even more in the future, as it was frustrating to see only crazy psychopaths succeed. For that reason, he wished the best for both of them. Everything the MC had said was true, and perhaps he couldn't have been more honest than that. The girl supported the MC's words, saying they should become successful for the good of the world. As he was leaving, the girl added that if he had any more requests, he should let her know at any time, as she would always prioritize his orders. The MC said he was grateful. However, the ghost annoyed him by questioning what he meant by hunters like us. The MC himself admitted he had said something embarrassing, but they should train soon. Now, on the 3rd floor of the tower, the MC realized that the monsters ahead of him were truly stronger than him, and he questioned the ghost about what he should do. The ghost simply told him he should drink the potion, and so he did. The MC said the potion's taste was quite normal. It had a hint of lemon and even a taste of honey. However, at that very instant, something began to happen. It felt like the world around him was swaying and his entire body started to sweat. The ghost told the MC that the girl's skills were indeed good, and he asked the MC what the sensation was like. It felt like every strand of his hair could be counted, and even his sweat seemed alive. This was the potion's effect, and it greatly enhanced the perception of reality. The ghost said that the thing around his heart was aura, and it exists within every hunter who enters the tower. Most of them don't even realize it's there. Learning to control this aura would be a decisive factor against the old man. Normally, one could feel the flow by meditating in that state. However, it would take too long, and since he lacked talent, he at least had to work harder than others. If he didn't want to die, he should run. The moment the monster attacked the MC, he realized the world seemed to slow down. However, even if he could see the attacks, his body didn't respond properly. As he ran, the ghost told the MC that he would be able to dodge, so he shouldn't give up. Orcs are low-level monsters with very simple attack patterns. So, it would be easy for him to deal with them once he recognized these patterns, and for that, he should gather aura in his legs. Well, saying that was easy, but if he couldn't even dodge, he wouldn't take a single step toward success. However, he had to do it. Suddenly, his heart started beating faster, and a jolt ran through his entire body. He managed to dodge the orc's attack. The ghost began to say that it was harder than it looked, and that was because he didn't possess the necessary channels for aura to flow through his body. Metaphorically, his body was like a small mountain path, and he needed to transform this small path into an avenue so that aura could flow smoothly. He could only feel the aura now thanks to the potion, as normally he would just be a loser. But as he said this, the MC was giving his all to dodge the attacks. When the MC was almost losing consciousness, he questioned what would happen if he transformed this path into a grand avenue. In his thoughts, this frustrated him because the guardian spirit was indeed right, and the metaphor he had spoken truly fit him. An abandoned path covered in debris. However, if he overcame this, what could happen? The ghost asked the MC if he truly remembered that the old man had killed him without even giving him time to react, and the MC confirmed it. However, the ghost said that anyone could perform that kind of ability, and, as he had said before, the old man had a long way to go. While for the MC, he didn't even need to comment. Hearing that, the MC began to grow even more frustrated. However, at that very moment, he dodged the orc and lowered his head. He positioned himself quickly, and the ghost was somewhat surprised as what the MC had done was truly creative. At the same moment, the MC drew his sword and charged at the orc, attacking it in the next instant. The ghost told the MC that he shouldn't let his guard down as orcs have very tough skin, so he should concentrate his aura at the tip of the blade, but that would be difficult for him. However, in a very simple explanation, he just had to try to channel all his aura to the tip of the blade. So little by little, the MC infused only the blade. And in the end, he managed to cut the orc and attacked it again and again. After the MC had killed the orc, the ghost asked him if it wasn't hurting. It probably was, since he hadn't even created a decent channel for it and still used aura in that way. He must have been feeling a pain that likely felt like he was going to die. He had ruined his entire body simply trying to take down just one orc. However, despite that, that final move was very creative, and he praised him for it, as a hunter should always use their head in battle. While the ghost was saying this, the MC was writhing on the ground. The ghost questioned the MC if he felt like he was going to die, because that's exactly what was going to happen. For starters, if it weren't for his returnability, he wouldn't suggest this training method, because even the old man himself meditates after taking that potion. He didn't use his own body as carelessly as the MC did. However, whenever he dies, he'll be able to return. And wasn't that amazing? No matter how tough the training would be, every time he went back in time, his body would return to normal. Since his counter increases every time he kills himself, he would need to use a different method to prevent that from happening. Since he had already understood how to use aura from the start, he would only need 100 more deaths to understand enough. Again, the MC died, and there he was again in that empty space. However, beside him was also the ghost, who wondered what kind of place that was. The MC explained to him that for now that place would be called Purgatory, and soon the system would probably send a message that he would return 24 hours in time, just like with the Flame Emperor and the Sword Saint. However, the system announced that the conditions for his skill had been met, so it would copy a random skill from the orc. Seeing this, neither of them understood anything. The MC started shouting, asking if monsters even had skills, and the ghost said that his skill was incredibly overpowered. The ghost began to say that this broke all hunter standards, but meanwhile, the MC stated he would take any skill since it wasn't worth much anyway. The ghost questioned him, asking if he would really take that skill, and the MC replied that it wasn't very important which skill he chose. Again, the ghost questioned why he didn't pick the best option, but the MC responded that he couldn't choose. And, judging by their colors, both were quite bad. The ghost was confused, saying he didn't understand how the MC couldn't see which one was better. And the MC explained that their colors were the same, he could only see their backs. So, how could he tell which skill was better? However, the ghost said he could see behind them. And hearing that, the MC became confused because the skill cards always moved so that their backs were facing him, and they remained that way, even if he tried to turn his head for a look. However, since the guardian spirit could fly freely, he could see both sides of the card. Realizing this, the MC became very happy and suddenly let out a shout. The MC simply told him to quickly reveal what the two skills were. Card number 1 displayed the blessing of reproduction, and card number 2 showed tweak. Seeing the descriptions of both skills, the MC was shocked. The ghost said the tweak skill was very cool, but he could have an orc skill. And regardless, the MC stated that tweak was better than the blessing of reproduction, so he would take it. However, the ghost tried to stop the MC. Yet, it seemed they were both thinking the same thing. And still, the MC chose that skill. The MC returned 24 hours in time again, and was happy to wake up in the room the merchant guild had arranged for him. Meanwhile, the ghost was complaining that he thought he would fall for that, but the MC told him to stop complaining and go train immediately. Then he opened his status window and noticed the skill was there. The ghost tried to convince the MC that perhaps it would be better to train in the lotus position, as it would be less painful than fighting orcs. However, the MC didn't listen to what he said and once again headed to the 3rd floor. Once more, he took the potion and set off towards the orc, and as always, the world seemed a bit slow to him. Suddenly, the MC stopped and used his tweak skill. Hearing that, the orc became somewhat confused, and without wasting time, the MC attacked it, thus defeating the orc. The ghost began to complain that the MC was truly using a hack and that it didn't count for training, and asked if he had no feelings for deceiving that poor orc in such a way without even considering their feelings. However, the MC didn't care about that. A week later, the MC was already on the 5th floor facing the boss of that area, who was the Goblin King. At that very moment, he activated his skill called High Society Goblin, and it startled the Goblin King. However, he quickly attacked and thus finished off the boss. The MC declared that he had been the strongest enemy he had faced that week and wished him to rest in peace. But the ghost told him to stop lying and stop being so overly emotional about defeating a single monster. The MC said he had managed to defeat this boss after 6 coins, to explain 1 coin meant 1 life. The ghost added that he was a liar, and that was a proven fact. Furthermore, he couldn't say that battle had been honorable as he had used the high society goblin skill, which only high-ranking goblins could utilize. However, the MC was surprised that goblins cared about useless things like hierarchy. Suddenly, the MC received a system message stating that his existence was much more defined, and for that reason, he would level up. As a reward, he received 2 more skill slots and became an E-rank hunter. The MC was happy about this. However, the ghost was wondering if those were sparks or drops of blood. The MC asked if that wasn't an effect of leveling up, and the ghost confirmed it was. But it wasn't just to make him look pretty. It was a kind of hint because it's possible to discover the form of your aura according to the effects that appear when you level up. For example, the Flame Emperor he had killed probably had a fire-based aura. Any hunter's aura takes shape after some trauma, but not always a bad memory. However, it is always based on a life-defining moment or event, and this reflects in the form of their aura. It's more like an effect of one's own subconscious. From what the effect showed, the MC's aura was likely fire or blood. The MC asked the ghost what the Sword Saint's aura looked like, and the ghost replied that his aura was like moonlight. When he was a small boy, he got lost in the mountains and didn't want to die. So, he climbed to the top of one of them and said the light from the illuminated sky was absolutely beautiful. The moon doesn't shine with its own strength, but by reflecting the sun, and he wished within himself that he wanted to shine like the moon, or so he thought when he was 12 years old, and he carried that thought with him ever since. But cutting to the chase, the ghost said it was time to go to the 6th floor. The MC asked if they couldn't go straight to the 10th floor boss. The ghost questioned if he wasn't getting ahead of himself, even as a novice, and the MC replied that wasn't it. He said that if he couldn't clear the 10th floor with 2 coins, he promised he would call the Ghost Master. The ghost asked how he would defeat the boss with only a single death. The MC said he didn't care, but had one condition. The ghost needed to reveal the exact skills of the 10th floor boss. Furthermore, if the MC won, the ghost would have to call him Gong Jim, a more polite form of address. The MC then asked if the ghost would give up or if he was that weak. The ghost said the MC was getting too cocky by trying to pick a fight against the Sword Emperor and told the MC to be well prepared, because from that point on he would start calling him master for the rest of his life. However, the MC was unfazed, stating that he would be the one serving someone, and the two laughed at each other. However, to outsiders, the MC was simply laughing by himself. Upon reaching the 10th floor, the guards told the MC he couldn't enter and questioned him why. The guard simply said that the MC wanted to commit an act of suicide by facing the boss alone, and asked if he hadn't seen the news about the Black Dragon Guild, which entered with 34 of its elite members, and still failed. However, the MC didn't care, stating that according to association rules, any solo hunter could start a raid. The guard retorted, saying he had to keep a record of everyone who entered there, and his superiors would look at him later. He would feel heavy-hearted if he allowed someone to kill themselves. The MC began to wonder what he would do. Then he started telling the guard that he appreciated his work, and what he was saying was truly accurate. To be honest, he really wanted to commit suicide. Neither the guard nor the ghost understood what the MC was talking about. He began to tell a story. He had recently lost his beloved, and the alchemy castle had told him he had an incurable disease with at most 6 months left to live. So, he could no longer live. Even without his health, he was still a hunter, and he didn't want to spend the rest of his life confined to a bed in the alchemy castle. He wanted to use the remainder of his life to challenge a monster. Hearing those words, the soldier felt moved. The MC even handed him a pouch of money, saying that it was the money he had saved for his treatment. The MC added that he already wanted to disappear from this world. He wanted to leave it without leaving anything behind, and this was his last request as a hunter. The guard said he could go ahead because he hadn't seen anything, and even the ghost was moved, asking if they were idiots in making a movie. Thus, they crossed the gate. Now, at the official location of the 10th floor, it was a floor that should have been cleared by the Flame Emperor. However, this time, the MC would write a legend greater than the Flame Emperor's. So, the MC opened the mansion door, and inside were several dolls laughing at each other, asking if he would play with all of them. At that very moment, the MC activated his skill and declared he would play with them. Well, let's go back in time a bit to where the Black Dragon Guild, which had secured its position as the strongest since the tower's opening, had unfortunately failed to raid for the 30th time. Reporters asked them what they thought caused this failure, and the guild master said there was nothing wrong with their skills. Rather, they had a bit of bad luck. However, someone was there to bother them. It was the Flame Emperor who had cleared the 10th floor. Of course, in the future, this interview became known as the Loser's Declaration. You might be wondering how the Flame Emperor was the only one who managed to clear the 10th floor. Firstly, clearing the 10th floor is relatively simple. The boss was hidden somewhere in a mansion, and you just needed to find the right doll and destroy it. No matter how much one protected themselves with their own aura, 10 minutes was the time limit anyone could endure those flames. However, this had no effect on ferret-type aura users, which is why he managed to clear it safely and even had the audacity to say that luck was also a skill. The ghost even joked with the MC, saying that he also survived by luck. At that moment, the MC said his aura wouldn't last long, and the ghost approached him, stating that he would last about 1 minute at most. He added that, just for the record, the old man could endure those flames for over 30 minutes and was now training to extend that time to 1 hour before challenging the boss. Unlike someone who had gone in without a plan, the ghost questioned if the MC could really defeat that floor with just 2 coins. The MC told him to be quiet, as now after the first death, he would think of something. The ghost questioned, saying that the MC thought he could initially expand his aura without dying there. Even if he tried, there were only 2 ways to clear that place. The first was to find the right doll, a 1 in a million chance, or to become so proficient with his aura that it could last long enough to find the correct doll. For this reason, he would certainly lose if he only used 2 coins to clear that floor. However, the MC retorted, saying that the ghost was forgetting about option 3, and because of that, they would see who would win after he died. As the MC's aura was probably already running out, he randomly picked up a doll. However, when he touched the doll, it began to crumble. They really had to do that, shatter a doll, right in front of him. The ghost said that no one could understand what would happen in the tower, and that the tower was probably controlled by a psychopath as it had given a stolen ability to trash like him. Suddenly, the MC's aura ran out and he was engulfed by the fire. He obviously died and his envy skill activated again, beginning to copy the skills of the infernal dolls. The ghost quickly went for the golden skill card and said it was incredible. Its name was Infernal Fire Barrier, rank S. In short, it summoned an infernal fire within a 2 kilometers radius, and no one could escape this fire without the user's permission. The ghost even joked with the MC, saying that now he would truly become the king of purgatory. However, the MC was thinking as he felt something was wrong. This skill was definitely very strong, but something wasn't right. Because of this, he asked the ghost to read the other skills. He read them one by one until he reached the last one, and at that very instant he was shocked. Even without hearing the skill's description, the MC said he had found the answer he was looking for. Again, the ghost was shocked, saying that the MC had understood what kind of skill it was. However, he should choose the golden card. It was extremely powerful. If he used it, suddenly a lot of fire would appear and kill everyone around. In his thoughts, the MC really wanted this golden card. However, he felt there was something strange because among the tens of thousands of dolls, there was only one true one, and the true one wouldn't burn as it possessed a fire aura. However, why weren't the fake skills burning either? He only had one answer for this. They probably had a skill that would help the summoner select targets, so they wouldn't burn themselves again. The MC went back 24 hours in time. But currently, he was an E-rank hunter, and because of this, he would receive a penalty for using the skill. He would receive a trauma from the opponent by whom he had been killed, and the trauma of the Infernal Dolls monster was recreated. The trauma began with a small child asking for a piece of bread, even if it was just crumbs. However, people always refused his request. Wherever he went, people always complained about him, and many wondered where so many homeless children like him came from. While walking, he ended up bumping into an old man. He started apologizing, thinking he was going to get hit. But the man merely stroked his head and asked if he had no peace and that he seemed hungry and suffering, his body appearing to be in pain all over. He asked the child to come with him, saying he was a doctor and had many friends at home for the child to play with. However, that was what the child thought it would be. While inside a kind of cage, the child asked the man when they could go out to play. Feeling very hungry, the man simply told the child to have a little more patience, adding that only animals succumb to their own desires. Just because he was born a beast didn't mean he had to be raised like one. He knew very well orphans like him didn't work, claiming they were too young and spread diseases from village to village. He was a good man who had a duty to get rid of children like them. Suddenly, the scene cut to a type of slave auction where people took these orphan children and sacrificed them using the good of the village as a pretext. It was more like a bloodthirsty cult. People commented that the number of sacrifices was decreasing, and so they needed to find more children for the next ritual. The child wondered where the kind gentleman was taking their friends and wanted to know why they kept getting hurt. And the ghost began to wonder what kind of thing this was. The MC said that there were probably 2 spirits now. However, the ghost said that wasn't important. He was questioning who the MC was telling to repent. The MC replied that this was probably the origin of the 10th floor boss. The MC continued saying he didn't know that floor bosses were once human. And the ghost replied that previously not all of them were monsters. These bosses are based on real-life events from different worlds. Some are even heroes and life forms from other worlds. This would become increasingly frequent starting from the 11th floor. The MC questioned why the ghost hadn't said this before, and the ghost replied that the MC hadn't asked. Also, this was the first time he had seen the origin of a place. He knew it was from another world, but he couldn't figure out exactly what had happened. Now, it was completely different to see it with his own eyes. The MC wondered if such things happened somewhere in all worlds. Suddenly, the house caught fire and the landlord and servants began to flee. The MC stopped them, saying it wasn't time to run. As the children were in the basement, all of them were in shock, wondering if there was no one there, and it was getting very hot. In the end, they still called for help from the kind gentleman. They began to question what they had done wrong. They just didn't want to starve and only wanted to play with their friends. They just wanted to have fun and live a happy life. That's how the trauma of the infernal dolls ended. The ghost fell silent for a moment and said that the situation was truly sad, but they couldn't do anything now. The MC asked if that was the ghost's first thought after seeing that, and the ghost confirmed he had a bad personality. But what could he expect? That's how the real world worked. That boss was just a monster now, and those children from the origin had been dead for a long time. What could the MC do about it? Therefore, he should just find a true doll and kill it. Then proceed to the 11th floor, 20th, 30th, 40th, 50th. That's what he should do now if he decided to climb the tower. That was probably how the Flame Emperor had thought as well. The MC said that Yuha would surely find the true doll and kill it, and he would do the same without hesitation if he had seen their trauma. However, the MC wouldn't be like him. The ghost asked the MC what he was going to do. Act like a child and not clear the floor just to avoid being like him. If he wanted to defeat that floor, he should kill the boss. The MC said that wasn't the only way to clear the floor and told the ghost he was stupid, as everything was right under his nose and he hadn't even noticed. He asked the ghost if he remembered that strength skill he wanted him to choose. The ghost said he remembered, and the MC began to say, grudge, resentment, and regret, as described in the skill, referred to endless rancor. Their resentment would never be heard and their desires never achieved. Burn everything, as long as you wish for it. An infernal fire will always appear within a 2 kilometers radius, and no one could leave this hell without your permission, no matter who they are. This was the description of the strength skill. The MC asked the ghost if he didn't think something was wrong. The ghost questioned what he was talking about and what was wrong with the skill. However, the MC was referring to the final part. No one could leave hell without permission, no matter who they were. The MC even asked, so, how did the Black Dragon Guild manage to escape without killing the boss? There was only one answer to that. The boss probably allowed them to leave. This was a floor that humanity had not yet cleared, and there was only one thing the boss wanted from its visitors. At that very moment, the MC activated his skill and began walking through the fire. The doll started wondering if he wasn't burning and even asked the MC if he wanted to play with them. The MC confirmed he did, and the game would be hide and seek. It was even a bit ironic to play this, as it was a part of hide and seek, where the children couldn't go anywhere. However, this was the answer the MC found. So, he went touching the dolls one by one, and we could see a glimpse of the children's spirits trapped within them. The ghost realized what the MC was doing. He was appeasing their spirits. So he kept touching each of the dolls until he reached the last one, which was trapped inside a cage. The doll asked him if he would play with her, and the MC picked it up, saying it was her turn. Suddenly the doll began to melt, and the child's spirit thanked him, saying, "Thank you very much, kind sir." This was the ending the MC chose. Thus he cleared the 10th floor, and his rewards would be given 24 hours after entering the 11th floor. The ghost asked the MC why he had that expression, as clearing a secret stage wasn't something just anyone could do, and yet he did it on his first try. However, the MC said it wasn't that. He realized the world was truly trash both in the boss scene and in situations that happen regardless of the world they are in. After that, an awkward silence fell. However, the ghost let out a shout saying that kind of situation didn't suit him, and he patted the MC saying he was impressed and that he had cleared the floors in his own way. He added that this time he cleared a floor with pure skill without any luck. Fireworks began to appear in the sky, and an announcement was made. The 11th floor would open in 24 hours. People started wondering what had happened and what those fireworks were. These fireworks were visible on all 10 floors of the tower. They realized that someone had probably cleared the floor and wondered if it was the Black Dragon Guild. However, they noticed it wasn't them because the Black Dragon Guild was on the first floor having coffee, and the others were also in completely different locations. People wanted to know who had cleared this floor. Of course, the ghost wouldn't miss this opportunity and asked the MC how it felt to be a main character while being a Zen. The MC replied that it felt very good, almost as if it wasn't him. However, the ghost told him not to get too excited as he had only cleared the 10th floor, but he was the closest person to the top, and the MC knew it. At that very moment, the guard arrived shouting at the MC and questioning if he had done that, as he was the only one entering the floor that day. And now all his bosses were calling him, asking what was happening. However, the MC just patted him and told him to relax. The guard asked for his name or a nickname so he could tell his superiors. However, the MC didn't want to say, not because he didn't want to, but because he didn't have a nickname. The ghost said the MC did well, as it's better to train in hiding than to show off to others. But we already know what the ghost meant by that. The MC said he realized something that now the ghost had to call him Gongjame, and even teased him, saying he thought he really couldn't clear a floor with 2 coins. The ghost tried to reason with him, saying they were friends, comrades, brothers. However, the MC didn't care and said that now he should use the suffix nim if he wanted to speak with him. Soon after, rumors were already spreading throughout the tower floors. Some thought it had been the Sword Saint. The MC began to wonder if the ghost thought victory wasn't good to appreciate. He started tapping his ear, asking if his earphones were broken since he wasn't hearing any response. Of course, for those who don't understand, this was so the MC wouldn't appear to be talking to himself. The ghost agreed with the MC's statement, but then asked why the MC wasn't calling him Gongjame or Lord Ganja. This was the last straw, and he started complaining that he wanted to go back to Marcus. But putting aside the banter, an hour and a half had already passed since the MC cleared the floor, and suddenly he heard a small sound, a simple cat meowing at him. However, the MC already knew who this cat was, but he decided to pretend he didn't. While he was playing with the kitten, several people approached him. He already knew who they were, and he even wondered why it had taken them an hour and a half to find him. Quickly, they stated their respective guilds, and just as one of them was about to introduce themselves, the MC told them to wait, as he had his own rules. First, they shouldn't tell anything to the media until the timer reached 0. The second rule was that he wanted a private place without any customers nearby. After they cleared the customers from the shop, they would begin negotiations. The MC asked them to start giving their offers, and they all began to say the same thing. However, the MC knew the reason for their desperation. The Sword Saint was a lone wolf, an isolated rank 1 who belonged to no guild, an existence that made people question the importance of guilds. If someone of his same caliber appeared, everyone would be desperate to recruit them. Suddenly, at that very moment, the cat spoke, offering 500,000 gold. That cat was none other than the master of the merchant union. Rank 3, the Countess. She began.